Brain soap. Hi, Chris. You said that believing there is no God is a belief that requires faith. What about Russell's teapot and the knowledge that belief is a comforting and pleasant thing for poor, rather smart mammals that are burdened with self-awareness and knowledge of their future death? In science, there is never certainty, but the evidence and the historical evidence seems to show that religion and the idea of God is man-made, and therefore, although not 100% certain, the default position until data supports the hypothesis of theism is atheism. I know atheism is a dirty word these days thanks to militant atheists, but what are your thoughts on being tolerant of non-harmful belief but not believing? Okay, well, this is a deep, deep, murky pool, and I'm, again, finding myself here where I'm just going to kind of dip my toe in it and talk about it for a minute or two and see if this helps answer the question. I don't think that belief, religious belief or other kinds of belief or faith, are things that could necessarily be approached or dealt with in a scientific manner, because the claims of belief that there is a God, for example, I believe that there is a God, or I believe Jesus Christ is my personal Savior, and by accepting Him, I will be allowed into heaven. These are not scientific falsifiable claims. You can't prove or disprove the existence of God. No one can, right? So as a scientist or from a scientific approach, you go, well, the default position is atheism. Well, I guess if you're talking about it from a falsifiable question, you could assume that, but belief isn't subject to scientific method or scientific falsification because it's not provable. So it's kind of a little oil and water a little bit there. In other words, they don't mix so well. And I think this is where some atheists fall down, and I think this is where some fundamentalists or religious believers fall down too, is trying to have this argument when they don't. There is no argument really, and because the terms of the activity are different, and so they don't go together well. And I hope I'm speaking clearly here. Now, when religion or believers do make claims that are falsifiable, that can be proven, that can be taken up in a scientific way and disproven, for example, young Earth creationists claiming that the Earth is 6,000 years old, period. Now that's a claim you can falsify. You can provide evidence to show that claim is not true. So so there's a line that religion can cross, or that belief can cross, where it moves into falsifiable claims. And I don't have any problem with people, taking those claims down using evidence and evidence-based thinking to disprove those ideas or those specific claims. But there comes a point that only goes so far. And there's a point where you are moving into areas of unfalsifiability, where you cannot prove or disprove the belief. That's what makes it a belief. That's what makes it faith, right? And I think it gets kind of silly and useless to talk about, that kind of faith or belief in, using scientific terms. I think I think it just becomes a kind of a round and round we go, and where we stop, we're never going to stop, because we're going to keep going round and round on this. And that's why I don't want to get into that debate or into that fight particularly, nor do I think that it's very important, because people are going to believe what they're going to believe regardless of what evidence you keep throwing at them to tell them to stop believing it. That's not going to change a person's faith or belief. It doesn't work that way. So I've talked before, or I was talking to some friends before about, the Bible. The Bible keeps, atheists really harping on the Bible and the logic of the Bible and the things that are in the Bible and how the Bible doesn't make any sense. Well, I'm sorry, but most Christians and most people of faith, the Bible is symbolic for them. The Bible is not literal, and the Bible is not something that they base, their faith is not based on that book. It's based on what makes them feel good, and it's based on what they want to think about their relationship with God. And you can point out illogics and, that there was slavery in the Bible and this in the Bible and that in the Bible. They don't care because that's not why they believe what they believe. So that's why my take on this and the way that I see that both sides can be right about it is to be tolerant of each other, right? And to not, to throw the intolerance away because it doesn't serve any purpose, because people will believe what they're going to believe. And as far as, the atheists go or the non-believers go, that's fine too. If you want to think that there is no God and there never has been and there never will be, and it's just a man-made construct to make people feel better about dying, go right ahead. I don't have any problem with that, and neither should anybody else. And that's, where I'm calling for tolerance on both sides. And I think that we should just be allowed to think whatever we want to think about that. And as long as it's not harmful and as long as people aren't hurting each other over it, I think that tolerance, and an understanding that belief is going to exist regardless, or unbelief is going to exist regardless of what arguments get thrown on one side or the other. If we could all just kind of, deal with the fact that that is a reality, then we could move on and maybe work together on some more constructive things.